Among the titles that Freedom and Friese released at Spielessen 24 is the card game Fishing, or in German, Fischen. This is described on the back of the box as a trick building game, a term I have not heard prior to the release of this title. It is a trick-taking card game for 3 to 5 players, and at the beginning of the game, it's pretty vanilla, which is unusual for a Friese title. Let's look. Fishing has a deck of 40 cards, with cards coming in 4 suits numbered 1 to 10. With 5 players, you use all of the cards, shuffle them, everyone will get a hand of 8 cards, as we have here. With 4 players, you remove the 1s. With 3 players, you remove a bit more. So players will have 9 or 10 cards in games with 4 or 3 players. You follow standard trick-taking rules. So if I'm the lead player with this hand, I've got a few high numbers. This player does not have much of anything. Normally, of course, these cards are all secret, but I want to show you what players are starting with. So if I have the lead, maybe I want to play the blue 10. Everyone must play blue if possible. This player has 2 choices. Of course, if whatever they play, they're going to lose because 10 is the highest number. So typically, you will throw your garbage. Right? Save your high numbers for later. When a player wins a trick, they are going to take the cards and put it with their fisher person. They are essentially catching it in their net. So I win the trick. I'm going to lead again. I could play the yellow 10. I know I'm going to win that. Why not? So yellow 10. And again, just going to take out the worst card. It's very straightforward. There's not much to think about in general, at least in this first hand. So those go on here. Now, of course, I'm going to lose. Why not lead the yellow 1? Maybe someone else is going to play out other high cards. Now, everyone can track what's been played, at least in theory, and to decide, okay, 4, 9, is there only yellow left? Skipped one person here. Skipped one person here. Let's throw out the blue 2. And this goes to this player. Now we're going to continue playing, and each player has their own net where they're going to put cards that they get. All of these cards will be claimed at some point by someone. Let's say I never win another trick. This is what I have. So at the start of the next round, what I do is I take all these cards, shuffle them, and place them on my ship as a new deck. And for the second round, you're going to take the number card that you have here, flip it over, and see how many cards you start in your hand. How many cards start in your hand for the second round? The game lasts 8 rounds, with the number of cards escalating over time. 8 cards. If I took 2 tricks, I have exactly 8 cards. And these are the cards. I have 10 cards because we're in a 5-player game. So I draw only the top 8. And no surprise here, this is what I captured. And now my hand is trash. Other players might have ended up with only 1 trick. Say they had this. Well, they're going to have a hand of 5 cards, and they need 3 more. Some people may not have captured any tricks. Now, each card that you capture is worth 1 point. So 10 points, they got 5, this person has 0. It's good to get points, right? Yes, but now you're wrecking your hand for the next round because you are going to use what you have captured. The game is called fishing. Essentially, you are going out in the ocean, catching things in your net, and then that's sort of the bait that you are using for the next round, which can be good or bad. Depends upon how things play out. Again, in the first round, it's pretty straightforward, but from then on, it gets much trickier because you have a separate deck of cards, and anyone who cannot fill their hand to the requisite number here, 8, is going to draw cards from this new stack of fresh cards, if you will. This player has nothing. If they're the only one with nothing, they would go first and they would draw 8 cards. And Other players might need some as well. You distribute cards in order from who needs the most to the fewest, and then clockwise from there, from the starting player of the previous round. This player needs 3 more cards, so they will take these 3. Other players might need some as well. And the special thing now is you are going to flip over these cards and discover that new things have entered the game. So now we have 11s. Didn't have those before. Now we have trump cards. The green suit is trump. We have 1, 2, and 3 of trump that is now entering the game. And in addition, in each suit, we have a 0 card. So you're now going to start the second round. Whoever has the fewest points plays first. And same thing happens. Whoever plays the highest card wins. They will lead the next trick. However, if you can't follow suit now, these 2 have trump cards, and if they play a trump card, they are going to win the trick. Highest trump wins. If you play a 0 card, you're not winning the trick, but after the trick, all the cards in the trick have been played, you are going to choose a card from those played into the trick, a non-zero card, and place it in your net. So you got nothing now, but you're going to have something nice for next turn, and you're taking it away from the player who won the trick. So you will get 1 point for that card, but the potential for more in the future. And ideally, you just leave them with very little. You are now going to, at the end of that second round, count all of the cards you have taken, 1 point per card, shuffle those cards. If you still have cards on your ship, let's say I end up taking only 1 trick, I'm going to shuffle those cards, although it's sort of pointless in this case. They go under what's already on my ship. And in round 3, I'm going to draw 9 cards. I have only 7. And so now I'm going to draw 2 more from the deck at the appropriate point. Again, people who need more cards draw first. But now we're getting even more powerful cards. These cards are divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 stars, and they enter play. All the 1s are shuffled on the top, and then the 2s, and so on. So now we've got 12s and 13s. As you might imagine, we'll have higher trump cards. We'll have other things that come up in the deck as well. If you don't want to know about that, you can skip to the time showing on the screen here. It's not a big deal because you will discover it when you play, but if you really want to know nothing, skip to that time. So, other things you might have. Well, you start to have buoy cards. So they are not a suit. They cannot win, except if a trick contains only buoy cards. So the other cards in the 2-star deck, you've got 4 of trumps. You have 12 and 13 in each colors. These 2 buoys. So when you play this, at the end of the trick, after that trick has been resolved, everyone passes a card to the left in secret and add it to their hand. This one, you're not winning the trick, but you will lead the next trick. Now, you cannot win a trick with a buoy again unless all the cards are buoys. So whoever does win the trick will now have this in their hand next time. At least they might have it in their hand next time, because if you win a whole bunch of cards, say I win all these cards, it's a huge haul, I got 20 points this round, I shuffle this all up and put it in my pile here, and now I draw 9 cards, and that's it. And the next round I'm going to draw 10 cards, and I still am going through what I caught before. And then, depending on what I win, I might just be shoving more under there. And I'm never going to have fresh cards that enter my deck unless I take them in other players' tricks. That's the challenge of the game here. Things are going to cycle in and out through players' nets and into their decks and then onto the table. It's very thematic in the sense that you are catching things and then using them as bait to try to catch things in the subsequent round. In addition, you're essentially riding waves in which you are working the old material. You have all this here, and then there's fresh water coming into the game, and suddenly now we're up at 8 trump. Oh, we've got this buoy card that, again, you don't win, but next trick, you determine what color that first player has to play. And if they can't follow, they play whatever, but they're playing off suit. And if everyone plays off suit, then you're going to win the trick. But you get to direct some of what's going on. Here's a card just worth -3 points to whoever takes it. So you're not winning the trick, but you get to stick someone else. You've got a 0 in the trump suit. There you go. Got some other cards. Again, higher, we're up to 15, 16. We're up to 18 and 17. There's a few more buoy cards in here. This one, for example, you're going to play, and now the lowest card wins the trick. Or, if a trump has been played, the lowest trump card wins the trick. It's kind of a neat inversion there. The trump suit is still the most powerful, but now it's the lowest trump number that will win. You play through 8 rounds, counting points at the end of each round, and whoever has the most points wins. I played Fishing 3 times so far in a purchase copy, twice with 4 players and once with 5. And once you get below that vanilla layer at the top, you're scooping up the rich mint green that you would expect from a Freedom and Friesa design. Because in most trick-taking games, you are trying to take as many cards as possible, or take as few cards as possible, or make a prediction and take exactly that number of tricks, or tricks of a certain color. Whatever it is, there's all sorts of variations in the hundreds of trick-taking games on the market. But fishing feels a little more nuanced because you're often taking something now at the expense of goods later. Because we're playing a game, I am winning a trick, I get 3, 4, or 5 points depending on the number of players in the game, or possibly 2, 3, or 4 if someone plays a 0, 1, 2, or 3 if 2 zeros are placed into the trick. Maybe I get something that's going to penalize me for taking that trick. You're taking something now, and then what are you going to play in the future? Are you picking up a lot of terrible cards that are not going to win? So win one trick now at the cost of many tricks down the road. If you lead a high number, everyone's going to give you their worst card. And great, you win once and then lose after that as those cards come back into your hand. So maybe don't lead with a high card. Play with something lower and then see what comes out. Try to get other people to take the trash and maybe you're going to win with high cards. It's really hard to say, even in the first round, because you know the cards that are in the game, but you don't know the distribution of them and how they're going to be played out, who's going to win the lead. And then if they don't have a yellow card and you've got a yellow 10, it's not going to do you any good because you will never be able to play it and win. There's no trump initially in that first round. And then new cards are coming in. And now you've got more uncertainty at that point as to who has which cards. So I've got the yellow 10. Did the yellow 11 come into play? I don't know. Even beyond that, you have the issue of people winning a big stack of cards. They shuffle them, put them on their boat. They're going to draw some of those cards and have them in their hand. So I knew that you won a trick with a yellow 11, but did you draw it? Do I just have to play around it? Do I just have to take a chance? What am I going to do here? It's funny because fishing has similarities to Ken Fisher's classic trick-taking game Wizard. It came out in 1994, 30 years ago, because in that game you have a 60-card deck, but in each round, each player gets a hand of cards only equal to the number of the current round. So in the 5th round, you get 5 cards in hand, which means a tiny portion of the deck is dealt out. And now it's uncertain whether your high number is going to hold up in a trick because you don't know what other people have. So fishing has this great mystery element to it, this probabilistic element where you can't calculate exactly what everyone has because you don't know which cards have entered the game and which cards people have picked up. And then they're going to play cards, and then they're going to draw again, and now you have to remember back, I know what they took 2 rounds ago in tricks, and they didn't play that before, so now they probably have that card in hand. it gets real fuzzy there. It gets messy and can't, at least over the 3 games, I've not been able to track to any sort of degree of certainty as to who has what. You're often going on tendencies and probability and what you think someone has. How are they playing that's going to make you think they have certain cards? Lots of fun elements there. Now, another similarity to Wizard, surprisingly, is the buoy cards. So the buoy cards, like the Wizard and Nar, or Wizard and Jester in Wizard, can be played no matter whether you have the suit that's led. So someone can play red. Your only red is a red 9. You're going to lose it. So instead, you play a buoy card and hold on to that red 9 for later. So you possibly can win a trick later by holding on to that card rather than just throwing it away to someone else and giving them a decent card. So the buoy cards give you some options. So in addition to just using the power of the buoy cards to become the first player on the next trick, or to force people to pass cards, which maybe you're passing something to your neighbor that you knew they were out of purple cards before, but now I'm going to give them a purple card that's lower than what I'm playing. I've got the 12 and the 11. I'm going to give them the 11, and now I play the 12, and they have to play the 11 on top. Unless, of course, they have a buoy card and can play something else. So the passing gives you interesting options. Going first gives you interesting options. The other buoy cards have things going on. So it's lots of interesting, mysterious stuff that's coming together, and you're trying to, as the name might suggest, right? In addition to catching fish and then reusing them as bait for the next round, you are essentially riding the waves of the game, these highs and lows where I take lots of cards and I score 20 points, and then that's all I'm working with for the next couple of rounds, and my score just crashes down. I get a hand of fresh cards and shoot back up again. It's a fascinating experience. I have no idea yet how to really play well or thoughtfully or work towards things, or what's the right timing for when you want to play. I mean, ideally, I think you want to just crap out in the 7th round, not take any cards. Hopefully you have nothing left in your stack, and then you're going to get a hand of all fresh cards, the best stuff coming from the deepest layer of the deck. And it will let you sweep in the 8th round. But of course, to do that, that means in the 6th and 7th round, you have to take the right number of cards in order to bottom out at round 7 and then draw a whole bunch. But if everyone's doing that, well then, how are you going to make that happen? Or, I don't know. There's a lot to think about in terms of how this works. And one tricky element, if the deck of fresh cards runs out, then the game ends immediately. So I played with someone who had played once before in a 5-player game where the deck did run out. So at the end of the 7th round, just bloop, that was it. So if you were crashing out in the 7th round to try to just hit bottom and draw a ton of new cards, and then there weren't enough cards to fill your hand, game's over. You did terrible for no good. So the number of cards that enter play really varies depending upon how well people do in a round. If everyone wins tricks sort of evenly, then everyone's getting kind of the same number of new cards into their hand. I haven't really seen that yet. Often it's one player who does nothing and one player does a lot. And then this player rises up with new cards and then beats down on the player who did well and everyone else. So, like someone else compared it to Power Grid in that you don't necessarily want to lead. You don't want to be the person at the top because you're often getting the worst stuff. You're going last. It's just not ideal. You want to be close to the leader, but not the leader, and position yourself the right way in order to rise up to the top and end up with the biggest haul in your net. But everyone's doing that, at least once people know how to play. So you got to figure out how to do it. It's a fascinating design because, again, it starts so simple and looks easy, and it bends your intuition as to what you're trying to do in the game. Taking cards is good, except when it's not good, but you don't necessarily know if it's not good. And sometimes you just don't control it. I got a lone blue card in my hand and no buoys. I'm playing that blue card, and maybe I'm taking something I don't want or giving away a high card. So you have a lack of control, as in many trick-taking games. You're trying to play the odds, figure out what other people have, try to read them, do all the good stuff. It combines all the good stuff of a wonderful trick-taking game with this interesting element of uncertainty and just, I don't know, this feeling, right? It is the feeling of going up and down on the waves that it feels good if you think you can control it, or if you do control it. You're doing what you want to do. I wanted to take lots of stuff. I did not want to take that trick. I wanted to position myself just right to get some new stuff. Or I'm taking the high cards because I'm late in the trick with another high card, or I got the one trump that I get to slip out because I'm voiding that suit, or whatever it is. All sorts of good feelings coming together in the game. You just need more experience to get a sense of the rhythm of those cards coming into play and get a feel for how it all works. And try it with 3 players to see how that works, because often each different player count gives a slightly different experience. My 5-player game, we nearly hit the bottom of the fresh card deck. Didn't quite make it there. We actually ended up in a 3-way tie for first, which is weird. There's no tiebreaker. It just, we all get to celebrate there. But I think that's maybe a new player thing. And as we get more experience, we'll have a little more idea of how to control what we get. At least that's what I'm thinking. We'll see whether that works out in time. But again, initial impressions for how fishing works, and probably the game I'll take to BGG Con to say, I want to play this as much as possible. We'll see. Maybe I'll find something else in the next few weeks before that show arrives in mid-November.